Hello guys, welcome back to A to Z Dentistry, and today we will be studying about erythroplakia in detail. So without any further delay, let's get started. So today we will be studying about erythroplakia under the following subheads. The first one is synonyms, then introduction, definition, classification, etiology, clinical features, diagnosis and differential diagnosis. So let's get to understand the various synonyms for erythroplakia. So erythroplakia is also known as erythroplasia of Currat, and it is also known as erythroplasia. Now if we try to break that word down, right? So erythroplasia basically here refers to the color red, right? And plasia means a mucosal patch. So it comes down to a red mucosal patch, right? And erythroplakia also refers to the same. Erythro means red and plakia means a red mucosal patch, right? So the name itself indicates that in this lesion there will be presence of a red patch on the oral mucous membrane. Coming to the introduction, so erythroplakia is a persistent velvety red patch, right? It is reddish in color, and that reddish color is basically derived because there is absence of the surface keratin layer. Now this happens because there is presence of connective tissue papillae, and the capillaries which forms the major part of the connective tissue usually become enlarged, right? They become engrogged and enlarged, and they project close to the surface of the connective tissue papillae. Therefore the color of the underlying papillae is seen through the thin epithelium which is remaining there, right? So the color red is basically because of the enlarged capillaries which are present within the connective tissue itself. Next, about the definition. So it is defined as an area of reddened velvety textured mucosa, right? So as we have discussed previously, it is predominantly a red patch, right? Coming to its texture, right? So it is velvety in texture, and this lesion cannot be identified on the basis of any clinical or histopathological examination. So basically it is not a particularly defined type of lesion, right? Also it hasn't been yet related to any kind of inflammation or any other disease process, right? So basically indirectly they are hinting it towards somewhat an idiopathic type of a lesion, wherein we don't really know and we cannot really describe whether the given patch has an inflammatory component or it is derived as a result of any disease process. Neither we can classify it clinically nor histopathologically, right? It is just an area of reddened velvety textured mucosa that cannot be characterized as any other definable lesion. So this is all about the definition of erythroplakia. Now let's move forward. So we will be discussing something about the classification of erythroplakia. So it is divided into three subcategories. The first one is the homogeneous variant, right? Now these are the most common type of variant, and they commonly occur on the buccal mucosa. These type of variants have a very well demarcated margin. So this is the first picture wherein you can see homogeneous erythroplakia. As you can see, it is a predominantly red type of lesion, right? And there are well defined margins present over it. Moving on to our second variant, that is our erythroleucoplakia. Now as the name itself indicates, erythro means red and leukoplakia means it has a white component also. Therefore erythroleucoplakia. So here you can see the central portion is predominantly red in color, and the surrounding area and the adjacent lesion appears whitish in color. Therefore it is named as erythroleucoplakia, right? And our third variant is the granular or the speckled variant. Now granular means something which is pertaining to the texture of a granule, right? Small spherical granules, right? Something which is speckled. Now these are elevated type of a lesion, as granule itself is elevated. So the granular variant obviously is somewhat elevated kind of lesion. The previous two lesions which we have described, that is the homogeneous one and the erythroleucoplakia, are essentially flat type of lesions, right? They are not elevated over the surface. But this particular variant, that is granular or speckled variant, these are somewhat elevated kind of lesions. Here you can see that the lesion is clearly somewhat elevated from its surface, hence it is named as granular or speckled erythroplakia. So let's move on towards the etiology of erythroplakia. Now the most common etiological factor for erythroplakia according to texts is it is a idiopathic type of a lesion. As I have also previously mentioned that most of the characteristics of erythroplakia are somewhat idiopathic, right? There is no known cause found to be which is linked directly to the causation of erythroplakia yet. So mostly it is idiopathic. Other etiological factors which have been implicated for causation of leukoplakia are consumption of alcohol as well as smoking. Now these can act as predisposing factors, right? And especially smoking might serve as an adjuvant along with alcohol to increase the chances of development of erythroplakia. The third etiological factor is candida infection. Now as we know that candida is an opportunistic type of fungal infection which is more common in immunocompromised individuals. Now it is a type of a secondary infection or a super infection, and this can occur and this can present as candidiasis associated with dysplastic oral mucosal cells, right? And in most of the cases candida albicans has been cultured in erythroleukoplakic lesions, and also the red component of this lesion, right, diminishes or disappears after antifungal therapy in some of the cases. And this is because candida can serve as an irritant. Apart from it, if the patient complains of burning sensation, then it might be the case that candida superinfection is present in that erythroplakic lesion. So the chief etiological factors, if I have to summarize, the first one would be idiopathic, that is there is no defined cause of it. Second is alcohol as well as smoking, and the third would be the candida infection. Now the noteworthy point here is that because of this candida infection, burning sensation can be present in some of the patients. So with the use of antifungal therapy, the red component of the erythroplakic lesion as well as the burning sensation might disappear in some days, or it will definitely get reduced to a certain extent. Moving on towards the clinical features, so coming to the age and the gender predilection part, right? So it is more common in 6th and 2nd decade of life, that is between 60 to 70 years, and it has a slight male predilection, right? Only because this smoking and alcohol is more commonly associated with the males. But however, in Western world, we can say that the predilection has been greatly come 2:1 or something like that. It has been reduced now because of the Western habits. Coming to the sites, so erythroplakia occurs on all the mucosal surfaces of the head and neck area, right? Half of all the cases are largely restricted to the vermilion border as well as to various intraoral surfaces, and other cases have been equally divided between the larynx as well as pharynx. Now these vermilion lesions of the erythroplakia are relatively more common, and these are more commonly found on the lower lip, right? Now this was about the extraoral. Intraorally, if we see, then the lateral and ventral part of the tongue, floor of the mouth, buccal vestibule as well as the soft palate are the most commonly involved regions, right? So here this is the lower lip and this is the vermilion border. This is the most common site, extraoral site for leukoplakia, right? If the patient complains of a red patch with etiological factors present and the lesion is present on the lower lip along the vermilion border, then definitely you can suspect erythroplakia in such cases, right? Coming to the next part, right, coming to the intraoral surfaces, so it is very common in the buccal vestibule lesion. It might also involve the soft palate. Then the lateral and ventral surfaces of the tongue are also very commonly involved in erythroplakia. Apart from it, certain lesions can also extend to the larynx as well as the pharynx. moving on towards the signs and symptoms, right? So the most common symptom which is associated with such lesion is definitely the burning sensation. However, this is present in about 5 to 10% of the cases. Otherwise, in about 95 to 98% of the cases, this lesion is completely asymptomatic. And as discussed previously, this burning sensation is mainly implicated to Candida albicans. Because of the presence of the superinfection, the burning sensation might be present. Coming to the appearance, right? So it is a non-elevated type of a lesion. Now this is with exception for the speckled or the granular variant, wherein the lesion may appear slightly elevated. Otherwise, if we consider homogeneous erythroplakia, right, then it is a completely a flat type of a lesion. Even leukoerythroplakia is a flat type of a lesion. Okay, so it might present as a red macule or a patch on the epithelial surface. Now erythro itself means red and plakia means a patch, so it is a red type of a patch present on the oral mucosal surface. Now the red appearance is mainly attributed to increase in the number of blood vessels. We have already seen this part in the introduction of the video itself, that because of the engrossment of the capillaries, right, the connective tissue papillae, these capillaries will project right through it, and because of the thin layer of epithelium which is lining the mucosal surface, the color of underlying connective tissue kind of shows off the epithelial surface, and because of the presence of those engrossed vessels, engrossed capillaries, the lesion essentially appears as red in color. Right, and this red color may occasionally be because of some kind of local inflammation or any kind of immunological response to those dysplastic cells which are increasing in the number within the epithelium, right? And in some cases the color may also present because of lack of surface keratin or because of the extreme thinness of the epithelium itself. So these are some of the reasons why erythroplakia appears red. The first one is mainly because of the increase in the number of underlying blood vessels, right? The second reason is because of any kind of secondary or localized inflammatory reaction occurring within the cells. The third one is any kind of immunological responses in response to the dysplastic activity which is going on within the epithelium. The fourth one being because of lack of surface keratin, the rate of keratinization may be dramatically lowered. Because of this and because of loss of those keratinizing cells, the lesion may appear red. And the fifth reason is because of the extreme thinness of the epithelium, right? Because the epithelium becomes very very thin, the color of underlying blood vessels shows off, and therefore it appears as red. Now here we will be discussing about a few characteristic clinical features of the various forms of leukoplakia which we have classified earlier. So first, starting with the homogeneous form, right? So as the name itself indicates, it is homogeneous. That means the lesion is of same color, right? So homogeneous form appears bright red, soft velvety type of a lesion with a straight scalloped or well demarcated margins. The noteworthy point here is that the margins would be well demarcated, right? The margins might be straight or scalloped, but the main thing here is that the margins will be very well defined. So here in this picture we can clearly appreciate the margins. The margins are scalloped but they are well defined. This is the second picture. Also here you can see that the margins are clearly defined and it is present as a patch on the buccal vestibule lesion. As we have discussed previously, buccal vestibule lesion, the vermilion border of lower lip, right, and the lateral and ventral surfaces of the tongue are the most common sites for erythroplakia to occur, right? So now it is often a quite extensive form, right, wherein the size of the lesion might be very big. Now regardless of the cause of change in the color, the typical lesion is usually less than 1.5 centimeter in the greatest diameter, and it might be less than 1 centimeter, right? Also, now this is a range which they have proposed, but lesions larger than 4 centimeters have also been reported in the literature. Now This particular lesion is very sharply demarcated from our surrounding mucosa, and the surface of the lesion is typically smooth, and the color is very regular. As the name itself indicates, it is homogeneous. That means the color of the lesion is very uniform, and the borders of this particular variant are usually well defined, as you can see in these pictures. Moving on towards our second variant, that is our granular or speckled form. As we have discussed previously, these lesions are slightly above the surface of the skin, right? These are slightly elevated type of lesions. These are soft red lesions, right? And the particular thing here to note is that unlike the homogeneous form wherein we have said that the borders of the lesion are well defined, in this variant the borders are very irregular, right? And also it might present with finely nodular surface or speckled surface with tiny white plaques here. Can you appreciate in this figure? This is the granular variant of erythroplakia. This has definite irregular outline, right? There is no well demarcation between the normal mucosa and the erythroplakic lesion, right? So this is the granular form, and the lesion also is appearing slightly elevated, right? So that is a very particular sign that this form is a granular or the speckled variant, because it is appearing as slightly elevated. Also the borders are irregular. So granular and speckled form has characteristic features, and it can easily be distinguished from the homogeneous form. Sometimes there might be present of small white plaques in this lesion also. We can see here the lesion is present from in the canine region itself, and here you can see that it is appearing as slightly elevated, right? Also the boundaries are irregular, and there is presence of a white small white nodules. I hope you can appreciate it. I have zoomed in, right? So this is our nodular or speckled form of erythroplakia. Moving on towards our next variant, that is smooth erythroplakia. Now as the name indicates that it is smooth, that means its surface would be smooth. So it is typically soft on palpation, right? And it has been again described as somewhat a velvety kind of a feel, right? So in the definition itself we have said that this lesion has a velvety type of a surface texture. So sometimes it might happen that there is presence of the pebble lesions. Now because these are pebble lesions, these might be firm at times, as we have discussed previously. In homogeneous form and also in the speckled form, the lesions were soft in consistency, but here in the smooth variant the lesions might be somewhat firm, right? But actually this type or any type of erythroplakia in general can never become hard or indurated. Induration is characteristic of carcinomas, particularly SCC, that is squamous cell carcinoma. So this lesion will never really become hard or indurated. However, the consistency can be described as firm in some cases, and also in cases where the nodular element is very much prominent. In that cases also the lesion might feel as somewhat firm kind of a lesion. Because of the pebbly surface also, the consistency might be palpated as firm. However, if at all carcinoma develops in such cases, right, in long standing cases, then the surface might become hard and induration may be present, but that would go more in the favor of. So our next variant is erythroleukoplakia. So we have studied about it earlier also. Basically in this there is presence of the white component as well as the red component of leukoplakia within a single lesion. So this is a relatively common lesion which we can see in our clinics, right? This is basically a admixture of two different kinds of leukoplakia, right? Now in the particular point here is that in the red areas, right, where there is a more amount of destruction which has been caused, there are increased chances of development of dysplastic cell and ultimately carcinoma, right? So that red part, the red element must be biopsied. It is very essential, because in many of the cases the carcinoma or at least carcinoma in situ is a very frequent finding, right? So erythroplakia is basically interspread between some white patches of leukoplakia, and it might have a erythematous area as well, right? Now this variant is usually present with irregular borders. There is no well defined border, as we have studied for homogeneous form. In homogeneous erythroplakia there is presence of a well defined border. In this lesion there is absence of any well defined border. There is a presence of a very irregular kind of a border, and the most common site for it to occur, that is the tongue, the dorsum of the tongue, and the floor of the mouth. Now the borders of the lesion may be circumscribed, or they may blend, with the surrounding mucosa. Effortlessly they will blend with the surrounding mucosa, but usually in our clinics what we find is somewhat this kind of a lesion, wherein the core is formed by the red component, that is of erythroplakia, and the surrounding area is largely the white component, that is the leukoplakia. And we know that leukoplakia has a typical cracked mud appearance. So in this lesion also you can very well appreciate the cracked mud appearance of leukoplakia, and in the core of it we have our erythroplakia. Moving on to a diagnosis part. So the clinical diagnosis is very easy to establish, as because it is a red patch, right? The patient will give you a history of habit, and it will appear slightly well defined. It might be slightly raised, if at all it is the speckled variant. It will have a typical red color. It will be present mostly on the buccal vestibule area or on the other areas which we have previously talked about, right? Apart from it, this lesion has to be differentiated from other lesions which might appear red, but it is relatively easy. First one, because of the habit of the patient. Second, the duration of the lesion might also give you a clue towards your diagnosis. But in most of the cases you can, just by seeing at it, you can definitely suspect erythroplakia based on those features which I have talked about previously. Now once you feel that this given case might be erythroplakia, so then you can go with the Toledan blue test. Now this Toledan blue test is basically done to check for any dysplastic cells or any dysplastic change, right? So differentiation of erythroplakia with malignant changes and early detection of squamous cell carcinoma is very essential, and for that we perform this 1% Toledan blue test. Right now this solution can be locally applied by means of a swab, or we may give oral rinse to the patient. Now because the malignant type of a cell tend to retain the dye, right, the Toledan dye, because of the increase in the mitotic activity which is present in the cell, right? We know that whenever there is presence of a carcinoma, whenever a carcinoma is occurring, the mitotic activity greatly increases within the cell. Now therefore, because of the continuous demand for the cells to undergo mitosis, they will consume more amount of the Toledan blue dye, and therefore they will appear as blue clinically. So this forms the basis of our Toledan blue test. The malignant cells tend to retain that dye, and in this picture, as you can see, the malignant cells have retained that dye, and the lesion is very extensive. It is almost covering whole of the buccal mucosa, the buccal vestibule. It is also extending to the dorsum of the tongue, but mostly the ventral surface of the tongue, right? So quite an extensive form of erythroplakia which we have seen in this picture. So once we are quite sure of the case that it is erythroplakia, we can undergo further lab test. Now one of the tests would be for Candida albicans. If the patient complains of burning sensation, definitely we can have a check for Candida albicans as well, right? So once our Toledan blue test comes positive, then we should go for a biopsy to check for the extent of the dysplasia which is present. Moving on towards the differential diagnosis. So our first differential diagnosis here is candidiasis, particularly erythematous candidiasis. Erythematous candidiasis tends to appear as a red patch, right? And you can say that this red patch can appear as erythroplakia sometimes, but however you can easily define it A, based upon the color itself, right, and second would be based upon the symptoms of the patient, depending upon the age of the patient, depending upon the habits of the patient. If the patient has a habit of smoking and alcohol, then it would go more in the favor of erythroleukoplakia. However, if the patient has any history of diabetes, hypertension or any other comorbidities, and if our patient is immunocompromised, then we can have a candida infection as a differential diagnosis, right? Apart from it, our candida lesions can be rubbed off very easily with a swab, right? We can just take a piece of swab and we can scrape off the infection. However, in case of erythroplakia, it is not possible. So this is one of the ways via which you can differentiate between candidiasis and erythroplakia. Our second differential diagnosis is denture stomatitis. In the second picture, can you see here the whole erythematous area, right? But here you can differentiate based upon the edentullousness, based upon the area where the lesion is present. As we have discussed previously, that the most common sites for erythroplakia to occur is the buccal vestibule, the ventral surface, as well as the lateral surface of the tongue, the vermilion border. But here the lesion is particularly restricted to the upper jaw. It is almost covering whole of our maxillary arch, right? So this will go more in favor of denture stomatitis. Our third one, differential diagnosis, is histoplasmosis. Now this kind of a disease is more common in farmers and it will present as a single ulcer, right? So can you see here, this is a case of histoplasmosis. It doesn't have a very prominent red type of component, right? But in this cases we can see a single ulcer formation. This is very common, and such diseases are largely restricted to a particular community. In case of histoplasmosis, it is largely restricted to the farmers. However, if at all we have a doubt, or if at all we need a perfect diagnosis, then obviously we'll have to go for a biopsy. That is the gold standard, right? So these are some of the differential diagnosis. Moving on towards the management or the treatment part. So first would be definitely removal of the cause, because without removing the cause we cannot expect any kind of improvement of the patient. First of all, we'll have to counsel the patient regarding the ill effects of consumption of tobacco, may it be smoking or alcohol consumption. So patient counseling is very important. We will ask the patient to strictly stop consumption of such products. Now by this we are eliminating the specific irritant, right? So therefore there are chances that we might regress the lesion. Our second management technique is incisional biopsy. Now in cases where carcinoma in situ, or particularly if cancerous cells or dysplastic cells identified, in that cases we will definitely go for a incisional biopsy, right? Now the chances of erythroplakia turning into cancer are more as compared to that of leukoplakia. So I would suggest, whenever you encounter a patient with erythroplakia, always go for at least incisional biopsy, right? So we will remove all the patch which is present, right? We will be removing that part of the lesion, so that we are just scraping off all the carcinomatous cells out of it. So this is one way of removing the patch itself, so that we will prevent the occurrence of carcinoma in future. But habit cessation is the mainstream of the treatment here. First of all, we'll have to remove the cause. Only then whatever we'll do further will be of any benefit to the patient. Other types of options of treatment which we can consider here is of surgical stripping. Now surgical stripping is a very conservative way in which we strip off the mucosa, right? And this is performed very like in such a way that it is least damaging to the tissues. Very thin section of mucosa is removed and there is minimal damage to the deeper connective tissue. Now the main advantage of this therapy is that we are preserving the tissue for microscopic evaluation, right? Apart from it, our next management technique is certain destructive techniques. So destructive basically here pertains to the fact that we are directly removing our carcinomatous cells, right? So this includes laser ablation, electrocoagulation and cryotherapy. After giving all these therapies, our next goal is to have a long term follow up. It is very necessary that we monitor these lesions very closely. Even after we have removed it, there are chances of relapse. So therefore a close monitoring of such patients is very important. Clinical follow up is very important. Now patient should be examined for every 3 months for the first post operative year. After that every 6 months for additional 4 hours. After that annual reevaluation should serve the purpose, right? But we should always palpate for presence of any lymphadenopathy in such cases, because in most of the cases the chances of cancer is very high, because the potential for erythroplakia to turn into malignancy are also very high. So a thorough head and neck investigation is also necessary. Particularly we have to look for any lymphadenopathy. So we have covered all the major subheads of erythroplakia. Now let's move on to our last session of the video, that is the exam tips. So my first exam tip would be, don't try to mug up this lesion, try to understand it, try to understand the basic concepts. It is very easy, there is nothing hard in it. I have already tried to make this lesion very simple to you and make it understandable to you all, right? So basically the name itself in most of the cases indicates what type of lesion it is. Mainly it will tell you about the color of the lesion, and this holds true for this case as well. Erythroplakia, it is a red colored lesion which will be present as a patch on our oral mucous membrane, right? Apart from it, whenever you try to write an answer, try to write it under the subheads which I have discussed previously. The answer should look presentable. You can also draw some diagrams if you spare some time, right? And also if you have histopath available for this lesion, so you can add on that as well. H&E diagrams are also very well welcomed by most of the examiners, so try to inculcate such diagrams. Apart from it, you can get this question as a SAQ or as a part of your LAQ answers, so try to understand this topic. This topic is common for third year as well as final year BDS, so understand these topics deeply. Apart from it, this is a very common clinical finding. You can find these cases in your clinics, in your day-to-day life, very common. So it is necessary for you as a clinician to understand at least the major lesions, so that you can give a diagnosis, you can give certain differential diagnosis, and you can plan at least the basic treatment for the patient. So that was all about erythroplakia. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you understood the topic very well. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. This is Dr. Snehal signing off. Bye bye. Take care.